So now I'd like to show one of my oldest games so it was played in 1990, so that means 22 years ago, in my first interzonal tournament in Manila, and I was black against Lautier, who was even younger than me, 1 year younger, so it was also first interzonal for him, and we played in 11th round. At that moment, if I remember correctly, we both had 5.5 out of 10. That means that we had some little chances to qualify for the candidate matches. Still, so after that, winning this game, I needed to win one of last 2 games, but unfortunately I did not manage that, so at the end I scored 7.5 out of 13 and I didn't qualify for the candidates matches at the end. But okay, during the game against Lautier, it was like for both me and him, more or less like a last chance to qualify. And so he played d4, and at that time I was a King's Indian player. Now I even almost forgot that such an opening exists, so I will try to remember it together with you. So d4, knight f6, c4, sorry, knight f3, g6, g3, bishop g7. Okay, this position is a bit more familiar to me even in last years, because I still play greenfield defense sometimes, and then my opponents may play the system with g3, of course. So bishop g7, bishop g2, castling. But nowadays I play exclusively d5 in this position, getting 2 symmetrical chess. The move d6 that I played against Lautier, I no longer play, so my knowledge of this is rather outdated. But I believe that if I get an opportunity to create an attack against White King, I can still do it even in such a forgotten opening. So c4, knight c6, knight c3, e6. Well, I remember that the end of 80s and also in 90s I was analyzing really a lot this opening, and I had sometimes painful moments, but also the moments of glory. For example, in 98 I won an excellent game against Anatoly Karpov in Rapid Chess in Monaco, and that game is in my book Fire on Board 2. Okay, that was not exactly an attacking game, it was more the queen side fighting game, but still. So h3, bishop d7. So this is the way I played all my life. And now bishop g5. Well, to be completely honest, this move I found a little bit strange, because in my opinion, if White has played h3 and spent a tempo on it, so how come that he provokes black to play h6 and then plays bishop e3, so black did it with a tempo. So something is wrong about this, and this is already what I felt in the game. But okay, in the game your clock is ticking, you are not going to think too much about philosophical questions. I just remember that I felt a bit surprised by this idea. Bishop here and then bishop back. Meanwhile, I have to say that I have always been concerned about e4, e5, pawn takes, bishop e3. Somehow this system always seemed to me very good for White and getting some space advantage. And if White plays d5, then knight d4 actually gives Black a good counterplay after exchanging on d4 and then queen c8. But this is then h4, knight g4, old ideas of Zygmunt Slanka, queen d1, knight e5, queen e2, b5, and then play on the queen side. So so this is how it could be in the opening if he played correctly, but as I said, he played something which to me it seemed a bit strange. Bishop e3. So now I played rook b8, Joel played knight d5, and I found on the board the move b5. I'm not even sure whether it's the best move. In my opinion, current opinion, black can perfectly play just e6 and take with the queen, or black can also move away his knight to g4 and then play e6. Well, there are different ways, of course, for black to play. But okay, I played b5, white took on f6, I took as well. And he took on b5 with a pawn. Yes, one thing which I really wanted to mention is that in 95 I got this position again on the board, this time against Jan Timman. Well, on this DVD I already showed my games against Lautier and Timman as white. Now both of them are in one clip, but me playing black. So Jan played queen d2 in Amsterdam 95, so b takes c4. He took then on f6. I took, and he took on h6. Well, the game had a very funny end. I don't know if I could try to find something better, but I was feeling peacefully, so I took his bishop, I took his pawn on b2, and allowed the drawish combination: knight h4, knight e7, bishop d5, knight takes d5, knight takes g6. Okay, this DVT is about attacking the king. This is not exactly attacking the king, because there is no chance to mate black like this. So it's more like hunting the king for the perpetual, but successful hunting. So knight g6, fg is only move, queen g6, king h8, and of course it's a draw by perpetual check, which white has to give. Okay, it's just a funny comment on my game against Lautier that 5 years later I had this position again, but this time without any brilliant win and with this quick perpetual check. Okay, so back to my game against Joel Lautier. Knight takes f6, pawn takes, c takes b5, rook takes b5. So he played queen d2, and okay, I knew that normal way of defending the h6 pawn would be either to play h5 or king h7, but I also thought that with g5 I got more activity, and I don't regret this decision. The pawn is on h3. So he played d5, I played knight e7, knight d4, and I sacrificed the exchange on d5. Well, I just did not want to even think about going back in this game. So, and going back would mean to play rook b8, but okay, then rook c1, that's what actually Lautier wanted. Actually, I could also think about sacrificing in a different way. To sacrifice with knight on d5. So, to take it with knight, but then maybe bishop takes g5 is interesting. Okay, that's complicated stuff. Rook d5, takes, knight takes. And Lautier played knight f5. Well, I would think that this is a mistake, because he gives me the second pawn. But on the other hand, if he plays g4, h5, I immediately start some serious counterplay. I don't know. Maybe he should have just played king h2, and after f5, just back with knight to f3. Oh, I definitely have the compensation for the exchange in any case. But okay, after knight f5, I took this either knight, queen d5, bishop takes h3, so now I have 2 pawns, and he played rook fd1. I expected rook fc1, but... And here I played something completely intuitive. I knew that I could try just to use the fact that I have 2 pawns for the exchange and try to open his king somehow. Well, just to put it into words, to play a normal game as they play when they have exchanged down. But then I thought that in order to make my pieces as powerful as possible, then I should change some of them or sacrifice. So and then I came up with this idea, very unusual idea of sacrificing the second exchange. So I played rook e8, he played rook c1, I played f5. Well, the point is that if he plays bishop d4, I can take this pawn on e2. So then he played rook g2, and I still don't know whether the decision that I made here, if it should be considered correct or not. I just thought it's very interesting, and I just could not resist. But I took on e3, I sacrificed the second exchange. Okay, and the idea is that I'm threatening to take on e3. If white defends it with the rook, he loses one more pawn, and then I put my bishop on e5, and I get very many pawns in return. But obviously Lautier doesn't want to give me the third pawn. Neither he wants to put his queen into passive position, because then my active queen would be definitely stronger than his passive queen, and my position would be better. So naturally he goes king f2. And now I played bishop e5, already thinking about taking on g3. And okay, and also having the plan h5 and h4. For example, here I thought he might try to do something on the queen side, to play b4 in order to stop possible ideas with c5, and then I will play h5, wanting h4. But Lautier played rook h1, he probably expected me to play g4, would sacrifice back the exchange, and okay, trying to more or less to get maybe even some advantage, although the position would probably be equal. Also rook h1 is probably a big mistake, but I think white's position is already worse, despite the fact that he has 2 exchanges more. Okay, so now one more sacrifice on g3. Queen takes e3. Now queen f3 is the only move, because after king h2, queen f2, king h3, g4, white gets mated. So queen f2, queen takes d2, and he played queen e8 check, because after rook takes h3, g4, in order not to lose the rook, he has to give this check anyway, but then it's even better version for me. So for example, he goes rook h1, I can give this check, take the pawn with a check, queen g2, play queen e5, and okay, he cannot play queen g3 because he will lose also the pawn on b2, but if he plays king g1, his rook will be passive, and I can just start pushing my pawns, play king g6 with the idea h5 and then f4. Well, when the pawns reach the 4th rank, then 3 pawns will be at least equivalent to the rook, and 4 pawns clearly better than the rook. And then don't forget that black queen is more active than white, and black also has the d pawn. So Okay, in this position, Joel preferred to take the bishop with his king, and I took on e2. So now, yes. Yeah, now he actually made the decisive mistake. He played queen d5. And then, okay, after king g6 I got this important tempo. So he must have played queen g2, although here it's already not very good for white. I can probably, well, I can either come to the previous variation g4, or I can also play queen h5, king g3, f4, and queen g6 threatening queen c2. No, but this is not necessary. This is really unnecessary. Also, after queen g2, I would just play g4 and king h2, queen e5, and king g1, and just play this position. Okay, so, but instead Joel played queen d5, so king g6, and after queen d4, f4, he's actually losing by force. So after rook g1, f5, there is no defense from g4 and queen h2. Well, it's definitely a funny game that 5 pawns were stronger than the rook. I remember it made big impression on my contemporaneous. And okay, I think this was also awarded, I don't remember first, but at least second prize as a best game prize in interzone tournament, of course. So this is definitely one of my best King's Indian ever.